Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, going to do a head-to-head with the Glen Garioch 12-year-old single malt Scotch Whisky and the Mortlach 12-year-old single malt Scotch Whisky. Now, the criteria for doing these head-to-heads is that they have to be distilleries that are listed in the 2024 Council of Whiskey Masters Master of Scotch exam. I'm preparing for exams. The second thing is they have to be whiskeys that in some way are comparable to each other in their production, in their aromas and flavor profile, and so forth. Now I could choose the other criteria. I could be wanting to test myself, one's at a higher ABV, one's at a lower ABV, and see if I can figure out which one's which. Could do maturation, one's a 15, one's a 18. Can I pull out a 15 versus 18 or 12 versus 15, so I could test myself in terms of age dates. In this sense, in this case, these are two whiskeys that have a lot in common, and yet there's something very unique and distinctive about them that is representative, I think, of the character of the distillery. The Glen Garioch is bottled at 48% alcohol by volume, both bourbon and sherry casks. The Mortlach 12-year-old is also 12 years old, also aged in ex-bourbon and sherry cask. However, it's bottled at 43.4% alcohol by volume. Kind of a strange number there. The Glen Garioch is natural filtered and natural color. So there's some similarities, but the ABV is a little bit different. The production for the Mortlach, they use worm tub condensers, which gives you a different mouthfeel to it. The Glen Garioch, I think, has a heavier sherry cask influence. Color-wise, can you tell the difference? Not really. Not really. You can put enough color in to make one whiskey look like another. They're both that sort of golden copper in color. If they had no E150, I know the Glen Garioch doesn't. If the Mortlach we knew had no E150 in it, then just that color is a representative of both using bourbon and sherry cask. We're sort of balancing out the darker colors of the sherry with some bourbon cask. On the nose, now I did an off-camera head-to-head with these to test my nose and palate. I did it yesterday, so now I'm doing it again. And of course, I've already reviewed these two whiskeys. The Glen Garioch changes a lot from the time you first open it to get down below the shoulder. When I first opened it up, it seemed like it had a little smokiness to it. In fact, a lot of reviews note the smoky character to it. It doesn't have any peat in it. That smokiness is like a slight sulfury note coming from the sherry cask that has interwoven into the spirit. And so it has just a waft of smoke, but it doesn't come across as sulfury. It's not like a matchstick that's been struck. And it's still there. That slight smokiness still lingers there. But it's got a little bit apricot, orange, apples and pears. Whereas the Mortlach, it's apricot. I mean, straight up apricot. Heavier apricot, heavier orange. So typically, sherry cask can give you that dried orange fruit character. So if you had a Christmas cake and you were to pluck out a piece of the dried orange in it, you get that sort of note on there. But it's much more citrus, a lemon and orange, a little bit of vanilla, bacon spices, cinnamon, nutmeg. The Glen Garioch, it's slightly earthier, a little darker. It has just that whiff of smoke. And just a hint of a chocolate character and a chocolate, like a chocolate covered orange. Both of them smell beautiful, really, really, really nice. Both of them have, I would say, equal amount of punch in the nose in terms of the aromas. So the intensity of the nose is about the same. The biggest difference is this is more citrus. The Mortlach is more citrus, and the Glen Garioch is slightly earthier. Let's go on the palate. I'm going to start with the Mortlach. Since it's lighter in ABV and more citrus forward, even a little bit of a floral note there. $43.4. We would typically think that's on the low side of the ABV. We typically want 46 and above, and yet it punches way above its weight. That's a nice mouthfeel. It's not super thick, but you know, it's got more mouthfeel and more weight to it than what you would expect at that ABV. It's got a nice silky texture across the palate. Sweet and floral up front. That citrus is showing up. The orange. Get a little bit of sultanas, a little bit more of the darker character going to mid into late palate, man, stumbling here. By the way, I record these videos after a very long day of work. So I'm typically dead tired when I'm recording these. I should probably do on the weekends, but I'm not so tired. But it's got a good long finish. But I'm not at my best at the end of a long day. I'll probably be at my best somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock for tasting. But having a long day at work, particularly if you're really stressful, to come home to doing a couple of whiskeys gives you something to look forward to. It's a nice way to finish the day, particularly before you have dinner. Citrus forward, a little bit of chocolate character there, a little bit of sultanas and golden raisins there. Cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, but for the most part, it's citrus and some dried apricots. Yeah, definitely dried apricots. Drink a little bit of water. Get into the Glen Garioch. The ABV just really shows itself when put up against something like this. So in a blind tasting, if you had a bunch of whiskeys and you're trying to determine the ABV, one that's definitely showing thinner, it's showing lighter, it's not as much mouthfeel, it doesn't have as much weight. Alcohol can also add sweetness to it. But the sort of roundness of the mouthfeel and the weight from the Glen Garioch really shows up more when you go up against a 43.4. It's darker, it's earthier, a little bit more black raisins, whereas this is more golden raisins, dried oranges, a little bit of chocolate. There's just a slightest smoke character in there, but it's just faint. I like the transitions more. I like the development more. Both of them have a comparable length finish, but the Glen Garioch just has more weight. It is a little bit more old school, and I don't know how else to describe that. It's not super bright and fresh and happy and jolly. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean? That sort of easy sipping, newbie kind of a whiskey. It's more an old man, sitting by the fire, smoking a cigar and reading a book, and that kind of the grumpy old man whiskey, that kind of a thing. That's Glen Garioch. It's just more of that sort of character, and I don't think that's a way to describe a whiskey when you're taking an exam, but that's kind of the picture I get, when I'm trying it. Well, and now I'm getting something else. I'm actually something I didn't get before. It's almost like a maple syrup. It's almost like a barbecue character that's showing up about 3/4 of the way back. And the texture is a little glossy, a little thicker, a little oilier, I would say, than the Mortlach. So, if you can't tell already, it's pretty obvious. I prefer the Glen Garioch over the Mortlach. You know, I think it's a better whiskey. That being said, I really like the Mortlach. And if you look at the prices, you know, there's a significant difference between the Glen Garioch and the Mortlach. So you have to take that in consideration. The Mortlach, for what it delivers and for the price that it goes for, is a really great whiskey. It's a great whiskey, and I think it's a real value play. A little bit under the radar. Don't have too many people talking about the Mortlach 12. So I would highly actually recommend them both. If you're really pinching pennies, you're going to go for the Mortlach. If you got the money, go ahead and go for the Glen Garioch. Absolute superb whiskey. I'm hoping I'll be in Scotland in April 2024. I don't know when you're watching this video, but I'm hoping to go back up in my 5th trip to Scotland, go to Fife, go up the East Coast, go over to Aberdeen, and then go over to Glen Garioch, because they're on the northeastern side of the Space side, the Highlands up there. Really fantastic whiskey. All right, that's it for this head-to-head comparison between these two whiskeys. If you like watching my channel but you've not subscribed, shame on you. Shame on you. Subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified for when I go live. And until next time, Sludge it. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.